There is a moment when you are listening to a song and something in the melody shifts and your skin erupts in tiny raised bumps that travel up your arms and across the back of your neck. It lasts only a few seconds, but the feeling is unmistakable, and most people have no idea what is actually happening inside their body when it occurs. Scientists have been studying this phenomenon for decades, and what they found is genuinely remarkable. The brain region that activates during those few seconds is the same region that activates when you eat something delicious, experience physical pleasure, or form a deep social bond. Your brain is treating that musical moment as a peak survival reward, and the mechanism producing those bumps on your skin is over 200 million years old. Let's start with what goosebumps actually are at a physical level, because most people have the basic explanation wrong. When you get goosebumps, tiny muscles located at the base of each individual hair follicle on your skin contract simultaneously. These muscles are called erector pili, and each one of the thousands of hairs on your body has its own dedicated muscle attached to it. When the erector pili contract, they pull the hair shaft upright, and the skin around it bunches up into a small raised bump. The sensation you feel is thousands of these tiny muscles firing at the same time across large areas of your skin. Now, here is where most people's understanding stops, because the common explanation is that goosebumps are just a response to cold temperature. And cold is indeed one trigger, but it is actually the least interesting of the three situations that cause them. The other two reveal something far more significant about how your brain and body are wired together. Let's start with cold, because understanding it properly explains everything else that follows. When your skin detects a drop in temperature, specialized receptors send an immediate signal to the hypothalamus, which is your brain's temperature regulation center. The hypothalamus triggers the sympathetic nervous system, which activates the erector pili muscles across your entire body simultaneously. In your ancestors who were covered in thick fur, this reaction was genuinely useful for keeping them warm. The hairs standing on end created a layer of contained warm air between the fur and the skin, functioning as an insulating barrier against the cold. In humans today with our minimal body hair, this reaction produces almost no insulating effect whatsoever. Your body is still running the same ancient thermal protection program, even though the hardware required to make it work no longer exists in the same way. Now, here is where it gets far more fascinating than most people expect. The exact same sympathetic nervous system pathway that triggers goosebumps from cold is also triggered by emotional intensity and moments of significance. When your brain registers something emotionally powerful, it releases adrenaline through the same system that handles temperature responses. In animals with thick fur, this reaction serves an important second function beyond warmth. When an animal's hair stands on end across its entire body, it makes the animal appear significantly larger to other animals nearby. This is a genuine biological mechanism that evolved to resolve situations between animals before any physical interaction needed to occur. A cat arching its back with fur raised looks nearly twice its actual size to another animal. In humans, this mechanism still activates in exactly the same way when our brain registers something emotionally significant or alarming. You get goosebumps when something startles you or when you witness something intensely moving because your brain is still running that same ancient sizing response. The fact that you no longer have enough fur for this to produce any visible effect has not stopped your brain from attempting it every single time. Now, here is the part of goosebumps that scientists found genuinely difficult to explain for decades. The same mechanism that fires when you are cold and when something startles you also fires when you hear music that moves you deeply. Not every person experiences this, and it does not happen with every song or piece of music. But for roughly 2/3 of the population, there are specific moments in specific pieces of music that trigger full goosebumps every single time. Researchers gave this phenomenon a specific name, which is frisson, from the French word for shiver. And when they placed people experiencing frisson into brain scanners, the results were completely unexpected by the research teams. The nucleus accumbens, which is the brain's core reward center, activated during the peak of the musical experience. This is the same region that activates when you eat food you love, experience physical pleasure, or feel the warmth of a deep social connection with another person. Your brain was classifying the peak of that musical moment as a survival level reward, not simply a pleasant experience. The same neurological signal your brain sends when you find food after going without was firing in response to a chord change in a song. Researchers then examined what specifically in the music was triggering this response and found a remarkably consistent pattern across all participants. It was almost always a moment of violated expectation, followed immediately by resolution. A sudden shift in musical key, a voice that enters unexpectedly at a different register, or a chord that resolves in a direction the listener did not anticipate. Your brain had built a precise prediction about where the music was heading, and the music surprised it completely. And that moment of surprise, followed by resolution, produced a dopamine release powerful enough to raise the hairs on your skin. This also explains why the same passage of music eventually stops giving you goosebumps after you have heard it many hundreds of times. Once your brain has fully mapped the musical structure, the surprise no longer exists, and the dopamine spike stops triggering the physical response. The goosebumps were never really about the music itself in any direct sense. They were about the moment your brain's prediction was proven incorrect, and then your system was rewarded for processing the surprise successfully. Now here's the part that most people find genuinely surprising when they first hear it. Not everyone gets frisson from music, and researchers found this correlates with measurable differences in brain architecture between individuals. People who experience music-induced goosebumps consistently show stronger functional connectivity between the auditory cortex and the brain regions responsible for emotional processing. Their brains are more directly wired to translate what they hear into what they feel, compared to people who never experience frisson at all. This means the ability to get goosebumps from music is not simply a measure of how much you enjoy or appreciate music in general. It is a measure of how directly your specific brain routes auditory information into its emotional processing centers. Some people are simply built with a more direct and efficient pathway between hearing something and feeling it physically in their body. So the next time something raises the hair on your arms, think carefully about what is actually happening in that precise moment. A 200-million-year-old response originally designed to help a fur-covered ancestor regulate body temperature and appear larger is activating inside your modern nervous system. And in that specific moment, it is doing so not because you are cold, but because your brain just registered something it classifies as a peak reward, something it considers worth marking at the same neurological level it marks food and warmth and human connection. A song reached into a system built for survival across millions of years and convinced it that what just happened was worth remembering forever. Do you get goosebumps from music, and is there one specific song or moment in a song that does it to you every single time? Drop it in the comments below and let everyone know. Subscribe to Whisper Files for more things your brain never told you. The lesson is simple, but most people only understand it after struggling.